Well, my first thought is that this meeting shouldn't be happening in the first place. Russia is a country with an economy the size of the state of New York. The military budget is 90% less than the United States' military budget. Vladimir Putin is effectively a war criminal. He's been out and about bombing innocent women and children in Syria, taking over large swaths of Ukraine, knocking passenger planes out of the sky with civilians on board. He's not a guy who Donald Trump, the leader of the free world, should be meeting with on par in Helsinki. Just by having the meeting, it's an enormous, unjustified gift to Vladimir Putin.
Trump, of course, says that he's not an enemy, that he should be seen as a competitor. Is it a bad thing that the US is perhaps viewing its relationship with Russia differently?
Russia is a malign country doing terrible things all around the world. They're meddling in elections in the United States, in Britain, in France, Germany, Italy, Spain. They're invading foreign countries. They're cheating in the Olympics. This is a country which is effectively a criminal state run by a criminal, Vladimir Putin. And to view them as anything other than that basically is a huge injustice to all the victims all over the world of Vladimir Putin and his corrupt regime.
But what are the dangers of wanting to get on side someone like Vladimir Putin then?
Well, I don't think so Putin laughs at this type of behavior. It's not Donald Trump is not the first world leader to try to do this. If you remember, George Bush had a meeting. George W. Bush had a meeting with Vladimir Putin in 2001, looked into his eyes and saw his soul. And then the next 35 meetings didn't go so well. Same thing, Obama wanted to reset relations with Russia. That was a total disaster. And so you have this strange sort of arrogance of a U.S. president wanting to go in and somehow taming Vladimir Putin. And his view on the whole thing is he just laughs and he thinks, okay, I'll take whatever freebies I can get, and then I'll start negotiating from there, and then things will go horribly awry, as they always do. Vladimir Putin has no intention of becoming a sort of sensible participant in the world affairs. He's a malign influence in world affairs.
Well, if that's the case, how should they deal with Russia, the U.S.?
Well, if the U.S. was doing the right thing right now, the only approach to Vladimir Putin is severe containment. Containment like we did during the Soviet Union. Instead of having a communist ideology, you have a criminal ideology, and the world, the United States and other countries, shouldn't give Putin an inch. He shouldn't have been allowed to set up Air Force bases in Syria. He shouldn't be allowed to be in Ukraine. He shouldn't be allowed to do many of the things he's doing. He shouldn't be allowed to host the World Cup. This is a guy who should be contained, not engaged.
Were you surprised that the meeting went ahead given the FBI's charges against 12 intelligence officers from Russia?
The level of detail of this indictment, if you haven't read the indictment, everyone watching this show should read that indictment. It is the most detailed, damning document ever. And basically what it shows is it's like a digital Pearl Harbor, that Russia did a horrible, the Russian government, the Russian military intelligence got involved in the most heinous way in the U.S. elections and tried to sway the outcome. And that can't be allowed to stand, to have Russia do that. And as you said before, this summit shouldn't be going ahead now, but it shouldn't have been going ahead even before this information came out. It's a you know, what Vladimir Putin is up to is no good in every different sphere.
Trump, of course, has been urged to raise this issue along with others like the Skripal case, Syria. Do you think he's going to?
You know, I have no ability to get inside his head and understand what his logic is. I mean, he's a very confusing character because on one hand he says these what I find very offensive, positive things about Vladimir Putin. On the other hand, his administration, his government, his Treasury Secretary, his Secretary of State, his military leaders, they're all very tough on Russia. The United States has issued some of the most devastating sanctions against Russian oligarchs at the same time as Trump is tweeting nice stuff about Putin. And so it all doesn't make sense. It's all sort of hard to reconcile. And I have no way of predicting what's inside his head and what he might do tomorrow in this summit.
We certainly see him, though, as a disruptor. He's had a weekend of it, firstly NATO, the EU, and even with the British Prime Minister. What do you see as his end game?
Well, I mean, I don't know what his end game is. The current game is that everybody's paying attention. You know, if he wants people to pay attention, they are. I remember when the first weekend he was in office, he was giving Australia all sorts of troubles. I mean, this is a guy who is wants everybody to pay attention to him. I guess it's working in that respect.
And it's not a bad thing, is it, in a way, to disrupt old established bodies like NATO that many people think do need some sort of kind of upheaval?
Well, I mean, the one thing we can say is that every member of NATO now feels real sincere pressure to increase their defense budgets, and they probably will. In some cases, that may not be such a good thing. I mean, the status quo may have been better in some cases than certain countries militarizing. You know, to create reform is fine, but NATO is not just about military budgets. NATO is also about the perceived cohesion of these countries to work together and mutually defend each other if they're attacked. And by creating these divisions, it lessens that perception, which is one of the sincere values of NATO.
Bill, great to get your insights. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.